I pay for people. No, you don't. You don't pay for nobody's Section 8. You don't pay for nobody housing. You don't pay for nobody roof. You do not. I stand on what I stand on. I don't care what none of y'all say. You ain't out here paying for nobody food stamps, Medicaid, TANF, or no damn Section 8. So keep talking in the comments like y'all doing. I don't care. And I stand on what I stand on. Y'all up there talking about something. Did she graduate from high school? Yep, I sure did. Did she read her check stub? Plenty of them. I sure do. Indeed. And everyone that I went over,
Apparently
it don't
not.
say welfare. It don't say Medicaid.
Oh,
It don't say
wow.
Section 8 housing. It don't say public housing. It don't say none of that. So I don't know what to tell y'all. But what you're not going to do is keep thinking that you're going to come for me. I stand on what I stand on, and I said what I said. It ain't nothing y'all going to do about it. But get mad, choke off your water, and talk in the comments. And that's all you going to do. You ain't doing nothing. Y'all ain't talking about nothing. Out here talking about who you pay for. Go pay for your mama stuff. Get her out that home and put her in your home and put her in that bed and do that. That's what you need to be paying for, because you ain't paying for nobody over this way or that way or the.
I stand on what I stand on. Well, ma'am, you're standing on ignorance. And this happens a lot of times. And this is something that needs to be addressed, explored, and we need to get to the root of this. And we need to weed it out because she's standing on ignorance. Her entire point is the fact that because she doesn't see it on her check stubs, that it doesn't say EBT welfare, that means that we're not paying for nobody's welfare as taxpayers, and that money's just coming from somewhere, which is simply not true. And funny enough, I bet you if you asked her, or if she was coming in contact with a police officer, then she would gladly say, "Oh, I pay for y'all. I'm I'm your boss. You got to do with me. I pay y'all salary." I bet you she would say that, right? Even though when she gets her check, whether it's on a state level, whether it's on a local level, it doesn't say in any of those categories, or excuse me, state level or federal level, it doesn't say in any of those categories that law enforcement gets paid for, right? All these other things that we pay for indirectly or directly, excuse me, it doesn't necessarily say that. It just says state or it just says federal. So because Social Security in the Medicare part or Medicaid part actually shows, she thinks that since it doesn't say welfare, that doesn't mean that we're paying for it, and that's not put under the federal aspect. Ma'am, you're just ignorant, and you need to just be open your ears a little bit more, because obviously that thing on her head is covering her ears. So that's probably why she can't hear anything, or she can't receive the information so that she can sharpen up her points and actually speak on things that's factual. But I would suggest that you take that thing off your head so that you can actually listen. And it would probably also enhance a plethora of other things, but we'll just stick to the listening aspect for right now. If you guys could do me a favor before we get into the next clip, if you could like the video, it only takes a millisecond and it helps me tremendously. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. It goes very far.
I ain't get my motherfucking keys, y'all. He talking about calling on Saturday. I'm a little pissed off because he took all my motherfucking money. I got 17 cents left in my motherfucking bank account. I paid my security deposit and half of my first month's rent, and I owe the other half on the first, and I don't get paid to the first. So he's just gonna have to wait for the other half on the first. I guess. I guess that's why I'm not getting my keys, but it's okay because he said he's still gonna give it to me, just not yet. So I guess I gotta wait till after Thanksgiving. That's fine.
It's funny because she has Harley Quinn on her shirt, and she even has a lot of her mannerisms. I think that's kind of crazy.
I just want to vent real quick. Excuse my hazards on. I'm taking somebody somewhere and I had to park right here. Yeah. Don't judge me, judge your mama. Anyways, seen this video and this girl was venting about.
Where did you park that you have to put your hazards on? Is making a TikTok video right now that important? Where you done parked in the middle of the street somewhere and got your hazards on so you can make a TikTok video?
Some Section 8. And she was talking about how she's tired of being on Section 8 and is it bad that she wants to get something more luxury, something she can afford, now that she's bored with the helping life and bored with what they call a trap, which is, I can understand in some ways because the government wants you to
benefit off them. They do want you to depend on them. That's how they get their funds, whatever. But I seen the video, and a big part of me was like, girl, do what you gotta do. Give that up, because there's always a woman out there that's less fortunate, and she doesn't have what you have, which is a blessing to have help. But at the same time, like we all say, it can be called a trap. Understanding both ways. I just personally feel like, girl, live your life. If you feel like you can branch off and give your Section 8 to somebody else, why not? Why keep sitting and being comfortable when you can be elevating if you're prepared to elevate? I don't think there's anything wrong with getting out of the Section 8 life, actually buying you something that you can really afford. There's somebody out there that really could utilize Section 8. If we're gonna talk about it, let's talk about it. I understand her side, and I understand the other people's side that's like, you have that, be grateful. Because it's crazy out here. I get your life is boring now, but girl, you're not ready. Don't jump off that porch until you're ready. If you're ready, give that to somebody who's less fortunate, that actually does need that help. I don't judge people on Section 8, because at the end of the day, a lot of our family had that or has that. If it's a tool that you can utilize it until you're in a better predicament. I'm not saying depend on it forever, but if it's helping you in the moment, let that help you in the moment. Quit judging all the time. Live your life. Do what's best for you.
So the main takeaway I'm taking away from what she's talking about is she keeps saying, when you're ready, then take that leap. Then I guess start doing things in your own best interest. So what are going to be the parameters which basically let somebody know when they're ready? Listen, it's easy to get comfortable, and it's easy to get complacent when you're having your whole life taken care of off another person's dime. At some point, we got to take our power back, and we have to stop thinking that something is just going to sweep into our life and then make us ready or position us in a certain type of way. No, you need to get in motion. And through the motion of you moving, of you taking certain steps, what will happen is opportunities will start to emerge while you're in motion. But if you're just sitting back and you're just waiting on something to happen, what you'll find is that nothing will happen. And I think that's how we get to the point to where we see so many people who have been on these benefits for so long. And by so long, I mean decades. They've been on these benefits for decades, and they've continued to rely on them to the point to where now, because people just didn't do the right thing and just do the moral thing, now they have finally had to put down regulations and stipulations, i.e., the 2-year rule, which now forces you up off your hiney to actually try to get some initiative and actually start taking a little bit more responsibility as an adult should for your own situation. So I think that's the key here. And yeah, I think you'll be amazed what happens when your back is against the wall and your hand is forced. As people, we're very adaptable. And I think right now, that's about to become very apparent.
My bad. I thought I explained it pretty good, but if I can just sum it all up, right? I got out of foster care in 2023. I turned 21. Now I had the option to be in a program from 21 to 25 years old where they just want you to go to school or work and they'll give you checks, and with those checks you have to pay a certain amount for rent, and they put that in the savings account for you, and once you complete the program they'll give it back to you. But I said, nah, I'm not doing that. Forget social workers. I'm done with foster care. Let me get on Section 8. Now when I first got on Section 8, I was working part-time and I didn't have a car note. Things changed. I elevated. I got to a better job. I got the schedule that I got. I'm not working weekends. I needed this. Now, child support was a little iffy, back in 2024, but he had to pay large sums here and there. So when they did the annual recertification, they included the fact that he had to make overpayments, even though that's not his set amount that he pays. So they upped my rent a couple $100s. Since they did that, and I'm like calling them up real quick, I'm like, hey, I still got a car note, like I could barely afford this, and they're like, we did the recertification, da da da. you have to pay what we told you to pay, basically. So I'm definitely stuck in between a hard place where I'm just like, dang, like I shouldn't have been on Section 8 to begin with, because I could have been in the transitional housing probably further than what I am now, because it wasn't about you having to pay a certain amount of money based off how much you make. It was just go to school or go to work. Here's your check. Give us some money so you can pay rent and we'll save it for you. I just feel stuck. I truly feel stuck because I want to elevate while being on Section 8, but I'm just held back because of my income. But that ain't doing nothing. So, yes, I keep going back and forth, and I'm thinking, like, should I go back to school and just quit my job? If I go back to school to quit my job, mind you, I've did some research. The schools that I've been looking into that is doable for me to go to, I won't be able to work my full-time job and go. So it's like if I quit my job, they're not going to take me off of Section 8. They're just going to look on my child support payments and be like, okay, well, you have to pay this since you're technically still getting money from child support, which is a problem because that child support payment is not going to cover whatever rent that they're going to up it to or adjust it to, plus my car note. So it's like,
So look, I'm going to be a little bit delicate with this one because she prefaced this. She mentioned that she was in foster care. So what that could indicate is she might not have had the tutelage, which honestly, a lot of kids growing up these days, especially with family members using government assistance or just in general, honestly, are not growing up with much tutelage, much more tutelage than probably she got anyway. But I will be a little delicate to that because it genuinely just seems like she's looking for guidance. And as someone who was raised without a parent, you know, it's kind of apparent that she might have been lacking any guidance. So I can't knock her too heavily when she comes out into the world and she's just trying to figure it out. So cool. Now, the main thing that I want to focus on is kind of the dilemma that she brought up. And the dilemma is she's trying to understand whether or not she should go to school and quit her job that she's working now, that she's been able to get more hours and everything, which has been able to kind of make it to where she can rely more on herself and not depend so much on the benefits. Of course, the child support is also supporting that. But her dilemma is, should I quit my job and go back to school? Or should I go back to school, which would not leave me much time to work the job that I was working? Or just the schedules will conflict. That's her dilemma. My thing is, I wish when y'all come on here, y'all wouldn't be so vague, because the important information that we're missing out on is, well, go to school for what? Because I think that's where the wealth of understanding can be gained here. Because, I mean, if you're telling me you want to go to school to be a dentist, then I might support that, even if it does come with a little bit of debt, hefty debt at that. But if you're telling me that you want to go to school and take African American studies or theater arts, then that's a whole different can of worms that I would advise against. And if you haven't seen, because she's obviously on TikTok, and there's a segment of TikTok, I reacted to it before, of people who come on TikTok and complain about the excess of student loans that they have accrued, and they don't feel like it's worth it for the outcomes that they're getting now that they're out here trying to actually come into society and work. That's actually an anchor that's making their life harder with their degree. And they're also being overlooked and being outcompeted by people without degrees. So just off face value, I don't know what you should do, because you didn't tell us what you were trying to go to school for, which could reveal that you don't even know what you need to go to school for. And because of your lack of guidance, you just see people who, whenever they hit a tough spot, they just say they need to go to school. And it's possible that she hasn't even researched what she wants to do. So where you need to start first is, I don't care if you go to school or not. What you need to do is you need to decide on what you ultimately want to do in life, just in general, whether it requires a degree or not. You need to get clear on that. And then second, you need to commit to that, because throughout that process, while you're on the path trying to attain whatever it is you decided your purpose in life is going to be, there's going to be peaks and valleys. There's going to be high points where it feels like it's worth it and you're excited. And then there's going to be low points when you're questioning whether or not it is worth it. And that's what I like to call the messy middle, right? So you need to have conviction, and you need to decide fully and commit to it so that you're able to continue on that straight and narrow path, no matter how low it gets or how high it gets. And then you can get to that flawless execution stage where you actually get into whatever your field is and you actually start getting good at it and building on that. But you need to figure out what it is you want to do. Even if that takes a week, a little bit of time up front, where you really try to hammer this out and try to understand what you want to do. Because once you decide on that, then you can start moving towards that. And as you're moving towards that, you'll be progressing towards that. And as you're progressing towards that, you'll feel good. Your vibration will be high because you'll be progressing towards your goals. And hopefully your goal is something that appreciates over time and it doesn't depreciate over time. I don't care if you're progressing and you're getting better and better every day at McDonald's flipping fries. That's not a career, or that's not a job that's going to appreciate over time. So put a little bit of thought into what you want to do. Make sure it's something that's going to appreciate over time, as well as research whether or not AI can interfere with that, or will likely interfere with that, because there's no telling. And then start moving towards that and fully commit on that, right? And make sure it's worth whatever's going to come with it, i.e. whatever debt may come with it. So that's what I'll leave it with. If, maybe she'll see this. But y'all, if you could do me a favor, again, like the video. Also, because it helps tremendously. And also, if you could hype the video as well, I would greatly appreciate it. Hyping is a new feature on YouTube where it helps smaller content creators. And basically, when you hype, it actually pushes us smaller content creators to the same capacity that it pushes the larger content creators. And then Patreon is linked below if you are into self-improvement content. I post it on there. But until then, I'll catch you in the next video.